Joining us now to discuss this new push from Senate Democrats on campaign finance regulation, the Deputy Director of the Republican National Committee, Sarah Isgur Flores. Sarah, we welcome you back to America's Forum, and let's talk about what Harry Reid wants to get done. Let me ask you first, Sarah, is he getting any bipartisan support from the Republican side of the aisle?
Absolutely not. And frankly, I'm shocked he's getting Democratic support. What has happened to the Democratic Party that all of a sudden they're in favor of repealing the First Amendment? It's stunning.
Well, last month, the Supreme Court struck down the overall political donation cap, saying the government may no more restrict candidates or causes a donor may support than it may tell a newspaper who it can endorse. But it seems that many on the Democratic side of the aisle are saying, wait a minute, money does not equate with free speech. What's your take on that equation?
Well, the amendment that they're proposing would just allow Congress to decide who can speak. I'm not particularly comfortable with Harry Reid deciding which political groups, which citizens can actually have a voice in our political process. The case in McCutcheon, which the RNC was a party to for what that's worth, actually was about how many candidates you can support. And again, the New York Times can endorse 10 candidates. Why can't I financially support 10 candidates? So I think we're actually making a move as a country to really strengthen and protect the First Amendment. I think it is frightening and dangerous that the Democratic Party is trying to undermine and repeal it.
Well, Sarah, I want to talk a little bit about the maybe the anecdote for what Harry Reid is proposing here. You know, we can go all the way back to McCain-Feingold campaign reform here, but the unintended consequences of a result of that, the Citizens United case, the McCutcheon case, which the RNC was a part of. But what do you, from the RNC's standpoint, what is the way to deal with the issue of money in politics? Is it opening up the floodgates here as long as there's transparency? What do you think might be the ultimate solution to these issues?
Well, I think what we've seen in the last 10 years is that our campaign finance system isn't working as it is, and that the First Amendment is a bedrock of our constitutional and political process. And when you try to limit people's speech, which political candidates they can support, and even more than that, which issues they can support, I think it's a huge problem that our founders would have just been shocked that we were even debating. And we can look at different solutions. I just think that the one that 42 Democrats were signing on to support yesterday is a shocking and really dangerous way to go about that, to just say that Congress now can decide which candidates you can support.
And along those lines, especially in the United States Senate, the Senate Majority Leader, the senior Democrat Harry Reid of Nevada, goes to the floor time and again to attack a couple of brothers who have the right to give money lawfully, constitutionally, the Koch brothers. Here is Harry Reid yet again taking aim at those brothers. Take a listen.
They defend the money pumped into our system by the Koch brothers as free speech. Mr. President, I defy anyone to determine what the Koch brothers are spending money on today politically. They have all these phantom organizations. They've got one now they got a new one on veterans. They've got one on senior citizens, another name. They must have 15 different phony organizations that they use to pump money into the system.
Well, now, Sarah, of course, I've been on the stump as a Republican nominee and a Republican office holder, and I have to tell you, I understand that attack mode politics is the name of the game. But for Harry Reid to sit there and somehow forget about George Soros and all his spending and some of the green billionaires who are putting up their own money in this election cycle for the Democrats, and of course the union movement, including government unions of federal bureaucrats that for all intents and purposes basically become a money laundering operation for the left. Why on earth, Sarah, does Harry Reid say all this stuff and turn a blind eye to all the spending in his party?
I assume he's hoping that no one will actually call him out on his hypocrisy. It is unbelievable. He was, many of the Democrats up in 2014 were just in Chicago to meet with Tom Steyer, who has promised to pump $500 million into electing Democrats to kill Keystone, which is, a job-creating bill, in 2014. This is the same guy who's been skirting campaign finance laws, funneling money to his granddaughter in the name of gifts, $30,000. And he's just hoping no one calls him on that and that people don't notice. I think that's a little nuts, but he's on message. I'll give him that.
Yeah, well, people have pointed out that issue you brought up there, Sarah, of Harry Reid and his granddaughter and that $30,000. That's maybe a topic for a different discussion here. But as we continue to look at campaign financing and Harry Reid here, we know about his addiction to his coke addiction, as it's been called here. But do we honestly believe that Harry Reid thinks this has a chance of moving ahead and actually be coming to fruition here? Or is this really just Harry Reid taking the opportunity, taking time on the Senate floor to again bash the Koch brothers just for the purposes of doing that?
This is Harry Reid trying to please his donor base and Tom Steyer and the folks like that. This has absolutely no chance of going anywhere. The American people wouldn't stand for that. This is our First Amendment. This is a political stunt, and he's done this before when he sold the Senate floor for the night to talk about Keystone and climate change.
Was that the slumber party thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I believe that Tom Steyer then donated $100 million right after that. So we've seen this before. It's sadly nothing new. But thankfully, we have a lot of Republicans in the Senate who stood up, who spoke their mind, and defended the fact that Planned Parenthood has a right to speak, and Right to Life has a right to speak, and that the U.S. Congress should not be in the business of deciding who gets the floor.
Sarah, we've heard you now mention the name of Tom Steyer twice, and I would think many conservatives, and maybe this is something that unites grassroots conservatives and the establishment Republicans, both during my day as an office holder and now back in this business. I hear from so many people saying, when will the Republican Party take the fight to the left? When guys like Harry Reid go after the Koch brothers, who, by the way, as I understand it, the Koch brothers spend a lot of money on public television and other philanthropic endeavors,
the Smithsonian Museum,
and Smithsonian, all of that. So
on.
it's it's a situation where they're involved in their community beyond political expression. Will Tom Steyer will he be bottled up or at least noticed like the Koch brothers? Do you expect the Republican message machine to counterattack vigorously and point out that Harry Reid, well, it's a case of pot, meat, kettle in this situation?
We will, but I'll tell you one thing, though, that we have that they don't, which are issues. Harry Reid has nothing else to talk about but the Koch brothers. I guess, unfortunately for us, while we would like to point out the massive hypocrisy in Tom Steyer and all of these left billionaires that are supporting him, we also really want to point out their damaging policies. Obamacare is deeply unpopular, and we need to start over on that law. Keystone, we want energy that actually lowers gas prices for Americans trying to get to work, trying to get gas, trying to pick up their kids. Foreign policy is a mess right now. That goes without saying. So we're trying to tell Americans that we need to turn this country around, and that Republican Senate is the way to do that. And obviously looking to 2016, the White House. And Harry Reid is stuck talking about the Koch brothers because he can't really defend this administration or the policies that he's been pushing.
Well, Sarah, when you take a look at this, I suppose the move afoot is to try and have Harry Reid fired as the Senate Majority Leader, and the way Republicans do that is to create a new Republican majority in the midterm elections. A minute left. Give us your prognosis, your outlook for a GOP Senate following the November elections.
I think Americans across the country are getting pretty tired of what they've seen over the last few years. Healthcare prices skyrocketing, energy prices skyrocketing, our place in the world deteriorating, and I think we'll have a Republican Senate come November.
Sarah Isgur Flores, the RNC Communications Director, thank you for your time and your perspective on this. We look forward to having you back on America's Forum. So, John, I guess the question we ought to ask our viewers, what about this KOCH, coke addiction of Harry Reid? Do you want to see, quote, reform, or are you suspicious of those things that would curtail your First Amendment rights? Why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. There's also email and Facebook.